Welcome everyone who's joining us right now. My name is Melissa Zisengwe. I am the Program Associate at People Powered. We will start the webinar in a few minutes. We're just letting everyone join in the meantime. But for now, you can make sure that you have your name correctly spelled, your organization and where you're joining us from. You can share the country or the city. We'll just give it one more minute. Okay. I think we can get started as everyone keeps joining. Like I said, welcome everyone. My name is Melissa Zisengwe. Today we will be sharing our new ratings for 2024. I'm the Program Associate at People Powered. And today's session is available in Spanish, Portuguese, and French. To choose your language, just click on the interpretation symbol at the bottom of your Zoom window. And to hear the interpreted language only, please click on mute original audio. Thank you. All right. Just so as we're going through the session, feel free to send in your questions via the chat function. We'll have a short Q&A at the end of the presentation, and you're also invited to share your comments as we're going through the session. And we will share the recording after the session in all the languages, English, Spanish, Portuguese, and French. And the slides will also be shared. You have access to the ratings after the launch, of course. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We can show the slides now, right? Next slide. Thanks. Yeah, so today we'll be launching our ratings of 30 tools, 30 digital participation tools. And for today's agenda, we will have, the session is structured into two parts. Go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so we have this, we'll present the ratings and how we improve them. And then we'll have a different section today where we will share the lessons or the reflections that we have noticed as we were rating the platforms. And for today's session, I would like to share who our speakers are and who our committee are. As you can see on your screen, we have 6 individual members who are the experts who have helped us develop the ratings. And today, some of them are speaking on this session, including Katja, Caroline, and Bess. Thank you for joining us. Okay. But before we get into the session, we have Nikhil from People Powered just to tell us more about People Powered. Nikhil.
Thank you, Melissa. Hi, everyone. My name is Nikhil Kumar. I'm the resource manager at People Powered, and I'm thrilled to be here with you today for the launch of the new edition of our digital participation tool ratings. People Powered is a global hub for participatory democracy, and our mission is to expand people's power to make government decisions by supporting governments and organizations building participatory democracy around the world. In our work, we aim to accelerate transitions to participatory democracy. So what does that mean? We create communications, resources, and capacity building support opportunities to help governments down a path toward more participatory programs and policies. And the ratings for digital tools that we'll be talking about today is one resource that we develop and maintain for practitioners in both government and civil society to compare and evaluate the many tools available. We also work to strengthen the global community of practice by bringing together participatory democracy practitioners from around the world to do more together. Our members decide on the projects that we should pursue in order to address common needs and advance participatory democracy around the world. And our digital participation guidance, which in addition to the ratings, includes a guide to digital participation platforms, an online training, and case studies, is an example of a project that's been prioritized by and developed with our members. So if you're interested in being part of our community, please get in touch. Back to you, Melissa.
Thanks, Nikhil. Can already see many, many people that I know. Thank you all for joining. We're excited to have you here. So to start off and continue from Nikhil, I just wanted to share the background to the ratings and why we continue doing them. We created the ratings to help policymakers and civil society advocates and others interested in digital participation to review the pros and cons of many comprehensive tools that have emerged and to make the right choice for their context and their needs. That meaning like ranging from purchasing one of the many ready-made tools to customizing an open source platform or to developing their own tools. We also hope to nudge the institutions that use the digital tools and the developers that create the tools to adopt good practices on issues like inclusion, transparency, accessibility, and privacy, which can in turn foster more positive participation and experience meaningful participation on meaningful impact on decision-making. But to start us off, Caroline will take us through how we improve the ratings this year. Caroline?
Great, thank you, Melissa. So how we improved the ratings this year? Firstly, the ratings are based on expert assessment and the user and developer surveys. We also looked at previous assessments as well to kind of double check on some of the evaluation results. The ratings are based on 6 criteria. We looked at the platform cost, capacity requirements, the features and functions on the actual platform, accessibility, ethics and transparency, and track record and reliability. This year, we made a number of changes to the methodology and presentation to improve the accuracy and accessibility of the ratings. So we've removed the overall score this year, only presenting the standardized number for each criterion. There are now only 2 categories of platforms we've looked at. So we categorize them into multi-purpose and specific. Multi-purpose looking at the different stages of the participation process. So some platforms looked at all of the stages, and in specific looking at one particular stage, but also specific to a region. We changed the Airtable presentation to discourage using the ratings as rankings, since a platform's usefulness is dependent on a number of factors. We also made several changes to the variables that go into the criteria. All of these changes are available on the People Power website. And then finally, with due diligence, we included the developers in the process, giving them 2 opportunities to provide information and correct any mistakes in the assessment. I'll now hand over back to, well, actually to Bess and Katya.
Thanks. Bess?
I also thank you. I'm Bess. I want to share the part of like how can the ratings help you. So today we'll share about capacity requirements and accessibility. So in capacity requirements, I also reviewed this part this year, and the big change this year is the due diligence. So instead of just digging for info on a website, we have been comparing notes and having discussions quite a while. And I can say that we are getting to understand more and more about the services provided by these platforms, with many platforms well developed. So it is no longer difficult to start or maintaining a platform, and technical support is not generally good, I think. And for the accessibility part, and in this part, we look at the lot of point about this part. And many well-developed platforms have customers all around the world, so they support a lot of languages. There's a lot to talk about here, but for instance, we still see plenty of platforms that only provides their services in one or two country and region. But of course, there could be still good services. So finally, due to the demand of mobile accessibilities, many platforms have fully support mobile friendly. However, some have been enhanced their functionalities on mobile devices to meet the needs. So I think for the originals part, we can talk about later. So I will over to Katya. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bess. And I would like to talk about the next category of things that we looked into. And particularly this year, we looked into features section that included 13 different variables. And we scored them according to whether it is offered by the platform or not. So the criteria speaks to the quantity of the feature, and it does not look into the platform's quality of the feature that is provided. As for the features themselves, as you can see, there's quite a big variation. We have idea collection, survey, proposal drafting, voting, discussion forums, commenting and sharing, which refers to social engagement features, mapping that would allow for projects and user contributions to be connected visually to a particular location. Interestingly, we added user timeline, a tool that would allow users to visualize where they are in the process. For example, whether they're still in idea collection stage or a voting stage of participatory budgeting. This process planning tool enables users to design all of the steps of participatory activities according to their needs and also makes the user experience easier. We also looked into such features as notifications to participants, user verification, and various types of data analysis and data work, like data visualization, quantitative data analysis, and sentiment analysis. And as I already mentioned, the criteria speaks to the quantity of the features rather than quality. And I would like to encourage people to remember that it's very easy to fall into the way of thinking that better is more and more is better. However, in fact, it's important for you to see exactly what you need when it comes to the features and then check which tool assesses it best. And for the next category, next slide, please. We looked into the track record and reliability. And there are three particular things that we looked into. The very first one is the time available for use, which is a metric of reliability. Therefore, any platform that will make into the ratings list will gradually win more points over the years. The next category we looked into under this segment was the profile breakdown of institutional users. And the institutions vary greatly in terms of who the actors are. It can be governments, CSOs, universities, research organizations, businesses, etc. And finally, we looked into the diversity of contributors, specifically looking into how many different actors are contributing to sustaining the platform. By looking at these factors, we were trying to reflect on how sustainable and adaptable the solutions are, granted their previous experiences. And the most common users are governments of all levels, but mostly municipal and national ones, associations and political organizations. And we also saw that academia and private sectors are starting to tap into the use of digital participation tools. And interestingly enough, as of now, not that many tools are being used by international organizations or agencies, which I think is an area where it can be expanded quite a lot. And for now, I'll give the microphone back to Melissa. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. That was great. And now we can share the ratings. Next slide, please, Maria. Thank you. We thought we should share the ratings midway so you can have an opportunity to have a look as the discussion is going. But I also wanted to highlight here as we're sharing the ratings that we are making efforts to expand the geographic distribution of the twos. This year, we tried to find many twos in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, and we would like to continue on this path. So if any of you are a digital participation tool based in any of these regions, please do reach out to us as we would like to expand that list. For this year, the ratings present 32s from mostly the Western Hemisphere. And we have removed some of the platforms due to not having much information or due to inactivity. So the list is only 30 for now, but we keep increasing the list as we go on with many more iterations of the ratings. And you can use the QR code or the URL to go to the ratings and view them. So now the ratings are now available on the website. Use them, share feedback with us. But for the past 3 years, that's how long we've been doing them, several organizations from around the world have used them to select tools that are more suitable to their context and needs. This does not necessarily mean they selected the tools on this list. Some have selected tools that are not on this list, which is exactly what we're trying to achieve, to get people to use the criteria to select tools that are very suitable to their needs and context. But for now, we should move on to the next part of our session. We would like to share some of the reflections on the current state of digital participation tools, including opportunities, challenges, and everything else we're noticing during the rating process. To start us off, I will hand it back to Katja.
Thank you so much, Melissa. And I actually want to continue talking about the issue that you already highlighted. And the issue itself is the need to expand our list. As Melissa already noted, some of the regions are currently underrepresented, and we need to really focus on finding the solutions that we can include in the ratings in the next year. However, that led us to a bigger question that we discovered during this year's work as a committee. And the issue is in expanding our digital participation definition and thinking about our understanding of what constitutes a civic tech or digital participation tool and how we should adapt methodologies accordingly. Maybe just to give an example or to explain it a bit more, the way we're thinking about digital participation and tools is still quite Eurocentric and North America centered. And we're looking into the tools that are fit for the political context, needs, and participation approaches that are currently being used in those contexts. While in some other ones, for example, a watchdog, whistleblowing, and awareness raising type of civic tech technologies are more relevant. However, because they're so different in their nature, they're so different in their features, it's quite hard, or if not impossible, to fit them under current definitions and current list of features and current list of categories that we're working on. So that's definitely a challenge for us for the next year to tackle and to think about how we can expand those definitions and how we can include those platforms into future ratings so that we can showcase them and also facilitate learning between different regions. And as for another learning and discussion, I would like to move on to talking digital participation and AI. And obviously, with the rise of AI, there are more and more features that are being powered by it, or at least that are being advertised or communicated as being powered by it, even if they already existed before. And the one feature that's obviously having the most attention when it comes to AI is at the moment data analysis. However, there are certain other things that are quite widely used that we did not assess this year. One of them is an option for auto translation. We talked about which languages the platform is available in, but we don't really look into whether there's auto translation within the platform available to facilitate communication between groups that might not necessarily speak the same language. And obviously some new features that we also didn't track but are emerging is the use of AI-powered chatbots that would help people and guide them through, for example, different proposals that have been submitted or different ideas that have been discussed on the forum. And that's something that is growing more and more. And for the next year, that's something for us to consider including. At the same time, as exciting as AI is, I want to start the conversation about the risk associated with it. And the very first thing that comes to mind is that AI is still a black box. And that's quite a problem because we don't know exactly how AI arrives to certain results. And hence, we cannot really guarantee transparency, or we cannot really exclude or track any biases that might be built in the technology itself and in the code itself. So we should be really careful about that. And the very last point, which again, a bit more philosophical question and a bit more of a broad point for discussion, is where with AI, we're moving towards automation of pretty much everything, including participation, which means that participation becomes powered not by people per se, but by the machines itself. And at the end of the day, one of the values of participation is the sense of belonging and community exchange and cooperation that's being built even through technology. So by using or over-relying on AI, we might be substituting human interaction and taking out this value of participation that exists. So we need to be quite careful about that, but that's something I leave for further discussions, and I'll pass on the mic to the next speaker.
And I'll pass it back to Bess.
Okay, so I will like give more share about the regional perspective about Asia. So I think I want to say like there's a different digital participation workforce in Asia. So in the last years, like fewer tools compared to Europe, but there are many digital participation work. I think there are fewer tools compared to Europe because in Asia we have a lot of many digital participation workforce or websites, but we are not so many tools for our workforce. So because in Asia we tend to use our tools to support our local languages, but for the tools from Europe, many non-local tools do not support local languages such as Japanese or Taiwanese Mandarin. So users from Asia tend to use ratings to understand the criteria and select Asian tools more suit to their context. So I think in the future, in our perspectives, we want to support more tools to improve their contents or their maintaining things. So for example, like Taiwan does advanced digital participation in a long time. So from what I understanding, to excel its area requires challenge the existing government strategy and adapting to change in government personnel posting election, and among other things, since that isn't currently a focus in Taiwan, but making progress is quite challenging. So I think can I skip to the next slides? So I think if we want to include more platforms from Asia and what's perspective from like experience as a civic tech, I think the digital tools can help us to build a better vision and improve our existing systems. So for next step, I will help maybe in Japan or Taiwan to get more understanding about the tools in Europe so that we can improve our process to get more digital participation platforms in Asia. So all I can say is that as far as Taiwan is concerned, things are still much as they were a long time ago. But I think we can make more progress in Asia. So I will over to to Caroline. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Bess. So I'll be talking about one of the areas we assessed. That was on ethics and transparency. And it is quite a tricky kind of aspect to assess because it varies with the region and it depends on the progress that various regions have made in, data ethics. So what we have observed from the platforms that we looked at, generally there has been an improvement compared to last year. So more platforms have specified and transparent data policies. However, we also have seen that there are still a couple of platforms that provide a more generic kind of policy, which is more about their website than the actual platform itself. So more needs to go into making those specifications clear, especially with the growth of the regulation environment around data ethics. And what we also notice is that some platforms leave it to the client to set the data policy, even the moderation policy. However, this is only valid if the service provider has no access whatsoever to the data. If they do have access to the data, then they also need to provide a policy on how that data is handled. Transparency of moderation policies is still lacking. What a lot of platforms tended to do was to sort of place a short paragraph on moderation, or even just a sentence, or even just indicate that there are functions to enable moderation on these platforms. However, there's no clear policy on who moderates, who is in charge of deleting, whose data, and so on. We also looked at raw data exports and whether they were available, like the service provider would provide those raw data exports to their clients. So quite a number of them actually did that, but it's a number of platforms we could not find that information that specifies that. And that is quite essential for the clients in order to do analysis for their benefits. So again, questioning who owns the data and who may decide on how it is used. The next slide. So Katja Katja has already actually touched on this aspect of digital participation and AI. Just one aspect I wanted to also talk about was, emphasizing that a lot of these tools are developed in Europe or the US, and so they are not really catered to specific populations or regions. And this needs to be quite transparent for the platform, or even specific when you engage with the platform and implement it in a particular region. Moving on to the next slide. Now, looking at the regional perspective on Africa. So as Katja and Bess have indicated, and what our committee and our team have observed, is that there are some really good platforms that are available. Of course, the criteria in which we use to assess them are quite central to Eurocentric, as Katja has indicated before. However, in different African regions, we have observed that there are a couple of platforms that are quite effective. But in the African region, the approach applied is more of a watchdog kind of approach. A lot of the platforms tend to provide access to citizens to report on something and just provide information on it. So taking those into account is important when you're looking at assessing the value of such platforms. We also thought that we should now kind of think of developing different categories for assessing these kind of platforms. And I think, we'd really welcome some feedback, especially from the regions that we don't have many platforms that we've rated on this particular year. So I hope we can get more information on that. Let's see. The other thing I also wanted to mention is that when you're looking at other regions, a lot of the platforms that we have rated that are quite Eurocentric and American focused tend to have the idea, the concept that there is government responsiveness that is always there. However, in a lot of different regions, that's not the case. So designing a platform that kind of caters for what is possible, what are the boundaries within a particular region is also important. I think I'll stop there and then hand over to Melissa.
Thank you. And now the time I think you have all been waiting for, we will do a Q&A. You can stop presenting now, Maria. We can just do presentations. Thank you. So yeah, we have quite a bit of time. We are way ahead in our schedule, so we can have some more time for quick questions. And I wondered if there's any questions that have come into the chat that we can start with answering. Otherwise, we do have questions that you sent in when you registered for the event. I'll start with the questions from the registration. And I'll start with you, Kasia. There's a question about, can you talk about some of the key ways of helping citizens and governments communicate better through digital tools?
Yeah, I think this is always a great question to start from, but it always, at least in my case, veers away from technology per se. There are a few components, obviously, to that. The very first one is capacity building requirements, both for the government and for the citizens. Obviously, it's erroneous to expect the government to already have the capacity to operate the tool. So it should be built in your plan to allow some time for the government representative to actually become more familiar with what the tool is capable of and figure out how it works. Similarly to that, it's quite ambitious to expect that all the citizens will be able to operate the tool as well. So having some sort of either training or some sort of support that would allow people to learn how to use the tool is essential. And it can be, for example, done in a way of cooperation with a local NGO. There's a good example from Scotland, from Glasgow, when the NGO that works with people with disabilities was providing those people with the hardware, the iPads, and also training them on how to use those tools. So that's also an option. But I think a much bigger and more important thing is when making sure that the communication and the use of the digital tool is effective, you need to start by planning exactly how you're going to use it and having a whole strategy set up around it. Because having a tool by itself is not, unfortunately, going to generate participation and engagement. People need to understand the process, why it's important, what kind of benefits or outputs are going to come out of it. So it is a whole process where a tool is an instrument. And in addition to that, I would suggest always having a hybrid option or having an option for people to actually engage offline. Because not everybody is going to have access to online tools. Not everybody is going to have an opportunity to operate it effectively. So for some people, usual pen and paper engagement or face-to-face participation is going to be a preference. And in this case, again, it all boils down to the process and making sure that those two type of participation activities interact with each other so that the data from the online activities is fed into in-person processes and the other way around. So to sum it up, I would say capacity building for both citizens and the government, creating a clear plan and a strategy, and always accompanying the process by some sort of in-person participation.
Thanks, Kasia. I'm going to stay with you. There's another question about, are the platforms open access? And I think they mean open source, or do organizations have to pay to use them?
So in the ratings, we have both. We have some open source tools and we have some proprietary tools. So some of the tools can be used for free. Some of them you have to pay to use. But however, just to quickly add on it, the tools that are free to use and open source tools, the costs are usually still going to be calculated and you need to account for them. The costs are going to be just connected to actually setting up and configuring the tool. So, but again, coming back to the question, it really depends. Within our current ratings, we have different options and different tools.
Thanks. And I'm going to take a question from the chat, and any of you are welcome to jump in. What stage has been reached in the use of artificial intelligence to support citizens in making proposals on social participation platforms? Any of you can take it. Caroline, Bess, Katja. It's a question from Bruno.
Sorry, can you repeat the question, Melissa?
Sure. What stage has been reached in the use of artificial intelligence to support citizens in making proposals on social participation platforms, such as supporting the drafting of proposals for the participatory budgeting or making it easier to understand local legislation?
I can take it for now from my experience and from what I've seen. In this particular regard, I think the use of AI is still quite limited. There are tools that have capacity, or quote unquote like the chatbot, that allows you to better understand the proposals, or also aggregate information about the proposals that have already been made. And that's pretty much it when it comes to my knowledge of AI being used in this particular way of working with the proposals and with simplifying information that's being fed to it. I don't know if my colleagues maybe know some other things.
Yeah.
There's a follow-up question from Jude on staying with AI as a theme. Any thoughts on AI or big data enabled decision-making in government and what the future of this trend is likely to be? Is this likely to be private sector dominated in the future? We also have one of the committee members in the room with us. Tatiana, if you want to jump in to answer any questions, you're welcome to.
I'll just say it. I mean, it depends on the capacity of government to actually take on these new innovations. So at the moment, it's definitely private sector dominated in relation to how it's used. There's some amazing tools that have come out in relation to comparing the progress of expenditure of government and actually aligning that to sustainable development goals. But regionally, it will really be quite difficult for governments to even start using such tools. Capacity strategy is needed, so there is a long way to go. So I'm speaking mainly from the African region, but I think there are some similar challenges even in the European region.
I'm going to stay with you, Caroline. There's another question from the registrations. How can you support grassroots organizations in developing the right tool to support ordinary people with the right platform?
Yeah, that's a valuable question. I think, the organization should explore what's available before even introducing a new tool altogether. There's some really good tools out there that we came across, rating the various platforms. However, you need to also assess whether it suits your region, looking at digital inclusion or exclusion, citizen buy-in, government responsiveness, and existing ways that people communication ecologies. So looking at offline versus online approaches. So for a grassroots organization, I would always say before you invest heavily in a tool, or even whether it's open source or proprietary, try a simple tool like WhatsApp. Obviously, considering data privacy issues associated with it, but try a tool like WhatsApp. Test the ground, see whether actors are willing to engage with such a tool, because you might have other contextual factors that even kind of act as a boundary in further engagement with civic tech. So start with the low end tech and see what's possible, and then see whether you can actually invest in something that already exists. Is what I would encourage, unless your region is really, really different. But I'm seeing with the tools that are available Now it's possible to use them in different regions, but still a lot of work needs to be done in designing them.
Thanks, Karuna. There's another question here. What are your suggestions regarding how to build communities of practice and design or development around these platforms? Any of you are welcome to take that one.
I think I can take this.
Go ahead.
Hey, so as I mentioned before, so we want to like improve our regional digital platforms in our regions. So I think the renting of this platform is very important to teach us how to like build up like completely or best platform or best practice of the digital participation. So I think the things we need to do is it's like maybe we can have some events or workshop to like gather people together, and we can choose some platforms to research why they are the success in their field, and we can choose like what platforms is the best for our region, and so that we can develop our our best practice for our region. So I think it's the way to do in our regions. Yeah, so that's it.
Katja, do you want to add?
Yeah, I wanted to maybe talk a little bit about an interesting example that we have from Czech Republic on creating community of practice or community of experts who can manage a specific platform. Like we explored a methodology in which a municipality that already has a civic tech tool engages local youth, let's say through youth parliaments or school parliaments, and those young people get trained on how to use this tool and therefore can support implementation of digital participation processes or even launch their own digital participation processes. And in this way, you're doing quite a few things. One, you're expanding the use of the civic tech tool and also familiarizing younger generations with how to use it. They can then pass it on to their peers, to their parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, you name it. The second thing, you're offloading some of the capacity requirements from the city hall, since they have a support from those young people. And at the same time, you're also supporting ability to create new participatory processes and efforts by those young people themselves. So I think it's kind of like a win-win situation for all of the parties involved, including the civic tech provider, the youth organization or institution, and the government institution. So I think finding this creative ways of engaging and upskilling people on how to use the tool can help to spread the use of the tool, but can also empower people to work on particular engagement processes of theirs within their specific group and within their specific category. So I think that's something that we can explore more, and the companies should also encourage organizations to explore more.
Awesome. Nikhil, do you want to take the question asked in French, and then we can move on to other questions as well? There's a question from Augustine.
Oh, yeah, it's just asking if like we'll be sharing the documents afterwards so that participants can use them. And
Yeah.
we will share the slide deck with everyone, and all of the data is available in the Airtable as well on our website.
Awesome. And then I'll take another question from Fernando. How do you assess or measure a digital participation platform's accessibility or reach to determine if it can be considered widespread? Bess, I think you can take that, or any of you can take that. I think it speaks to a variety of the criteria.
In terms of reach, I suppose it's where it's been implemented, right? Is that correct? So one of the questions actually looked at that. Which regions have they been implemented in? And on the website, we also had a look at the various projects in different areas in terms of reach. Accessibility, I'll leave that to one of the colleagues who assessed that section.
Bess, do you want to take the accessibility one? How do you assess the accessibility of a platform?
I think I can take on the accessibility. I think for accessibility, we looked into a number of factors. The first one, Caroline already mentioned the number of countries where the platform has been used. We looked into the functionality in multiple languages, whether it's available or not. I think specifically we looked into accessibility for people with disabilities and the hybrid integration, whether it was available or not. Same as some connectivity requirements, whether the platforms are suitable for communities with connectivity challenges and the browser technology requirements. And I think that that's pretty much it. So we tried to cover both technological accessibility, then accessibility based on specific population needs, and then regional accessibility as well.
Let me see if there's more question. In your methodology, how do you assure representatives from diverse groups? I can start answering this one, and then the committee can also answer. In the methodology, I think that starts with the selection of the committee itself. So we made sure that when we were selecting the committee, it was diverse regionally and gender-wise. We needed people from Latin America, people from Africa, people from Eastern Europe, just as much as people from the US and Europe. So the committee is made up of people from 6 continents. So that's part of that methodology to ensure that we have a diverse representation. Do you want to add anything? No. Okay. Is it possible to share the contact information of the participants for networking and learning from each other's experiences? I would say no, our data policy does not allow us to do that, but you are welcome to share each other's contacts in the chat so that you can all take up the communication thereafter. Let's see if we have any more questions. Okay, I think I have one last question here. Was AI used in the dataset creation or evaluation process? Does anyone want to take that one?
No, we did not use AI. It was very much a qualitative study that we did actually apply without AI.
The platforms are numeral. Wouldn't we want to vote or select the ones which are user-friendly? There's definitely a need to familiarize with the tools, and are there tutorials online to guide? Well, yes, we do have the guide, which can also help with this. That's the entire point of our guide, because there's a lot of tools out there. I think the guide speaks to the need of selecting a platform, the need to not use a platform, the need to build your own platform. So we do have a guide. And I think the platforms themselves usually have some type of tutorials and case studies to help you figure out some of this as well, to figure out if it's user-friendly or not. Katja, do you have anything you might add to that?
Mm-hmm. I was thinking more about specifically whether each of the tools has the guides and the online tutorials, and unfortunately not. Actually, that's also one of the challenges. I'll probably speak for all of the committee members, but the information provided by the companies on their websites is scarce at times. So it's quite hard to piece things together. So some of the solutions would have their guides and tutorials and even demo versions easily available. The others are not so much. So unfortunately, there is no universal and standard answer. We do want to see that to be a best practice for anyone to be able to log on the website and be able to browse around to get a feel of how the platform looks like and feels like. Unfortunately, that's not the case at the moment for all of the providers.
Yeah. And just to add on to that, if you are a platform, please do share the information on your website or with us, because it will help improve your score, because sometimes we have to put NA because we're not sure if you have the 2 or not, because there's no information. And we have reached out to a lot of the platforms, all the platforms on the list. We reached out to all of them in one way or another. So just make an effort to also respond to us so that we can improve the accuracy of the ratings. Yeah. And yes, we will share the presentation as well and the recording. Yeah. And then let me see if there's one more question we can take. Yeah, there's another question here. Does the new platform include channels for users to provide feedback and report issues or concerns? Does anyone want to take that question?
I can
Sure.
take this one.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Unfortunately, we were not tracking this functionality as a standalone. So it's not really included as a separate functionality. However, from the experience of rating it, this functionality is present in a lot of different tools, just under different categories. There are some tools that are using idea gathering for reporting of the issues. There are some tools where the discussion forums are used for gathering information about the issues and gathering the feedback. And also there are some tools that use mapping solutions to, again, gather issues and geographically tie them to a specific area. So it's fragmented, and unfortunately we do not track it as a single thing, but it's hidden in one of those 3 most of the times.
Thanks, Katja. If there's no more questions, I will move to ending the discussion. I just want to see that there's no other questions before I move to end discussion. Okay. Thank you everyone for engaging with us. That's fine, we'll move. So for our next steps here, we would like to encourage especially platforms from the Global South to reach out to us and share their platforms with us for the next issue of our ratings, which will be next year. We would like to have these tools on our records so that we don't end up searching for new platforms, because that takes quite a lot of time, and there's many out there and we don't know who's where. Send us feedback and information, especially information about your own platform. Like I said, it helps the committee improve your score if we have the information, and most importantly, evidence of the tools, the features that you have on your platform. So it's not just about, yes, we have this. The committee would like to see a bit more evidence to that. You can share the ratings with people you think they might be able to use them. You can share your experience if you've used the ratings. I know plenty of people from Asia have used the ratings to select tools. So we would love to hear your experience. And you can also apply for mentorship. My colleagues will share a link in the chat for you to apply if you're interested. But I just want to thank you everyone for joining today, and for our speakers for taking all the questions and staying with us today. You can also check out the guide and a few stories about digital participation on our website. The link to the ratings is on the chat. And the next slide should show our email address where you can reach us. I will respond, I promise. I try to respond to everything that we receive. So if you have information, if you are in your platform, please do reach out. And we will be sharing the recordings, the slide, and information via email. And yeah, thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you have a good day.